we should expect our team members and employees to be 70 or 80% as well as us. So that's one thing I agree with what Jimmy said with the Gary Vee thing. Second thing that Jimmy said, which I want to double click on, which I really am passionate about, which is a lot of these practice owners and also business owners throughout the country, just service-based businesses, business owners everywhere. And I'm trying to improve on this every single day, which is.
And there was a great clip from Gary Vee. He does these speaking engagements, and then a lot of really great clips come from when he starts taking questions from the audience. And this guy stood up. It doesn't even matter what kind of business owner he was. He said, Gary, everybody's lazy. Nobody wants to work. I can't find anybody who works as hard as me in my business. What am I doing wrong? And Gary, he was not expecting this. He was expecting grind or these people are lazy. And Gary essentially slapped him across the face. He goes, why would anybody work as hard or harder than you in your business? They are a solution for you. You work for them. So the problem, my friend, is in the mirror. So, I bring this up because people will say these people are lazy. They don't want to work. Well, understand what drives someone, right? Is it autonomy? Is it showing up? Is it reliability? I go back to my demo with hips and shoulders. If you want mobility and the ability to be creative and flexible, you're going to have less stability. That's a shoulder joint. If you want a lot of stability with a little mobility, that's a hip joint. Very, very stable. So understanding who you are, self-awareness, what you want to get out of this, as well as understanding the people on your team will help you, in my opinion, go a long, long way. But I think that clip from Gary Vee where the business owner sort of got slapped across the face, hey man, you're actually the problem because you don't understand the second component we were just talking about. Understand the rules of business, the guidelines, the contracts, how things work. Then you have to understand the human component or you will lose.
Did either of you guys interview Ben Gallen?
No, I know the name.
Yeah, Dave did. He and I didn't see eye to eye on this exact topic. Basically, when he and I were talking about something in a panel discussion, he was effectively saying, look, you're the owner, you're the leader, this is your business, they're either on the bus or off the bus, that kind of conversation. And I understand. I was like that when I started the business. I read E-Myth Revisited. I created all the systems and the processes, and I thought I'm going to train my team and they're going to do things the way I want things to be done because, hey, I'm paying you to do things the way I want things to be done. It took a couple years, but I pretty quickly realized that's not in my personality, and I don't believe that's the way things should be done. I eventually realized, hey, my customer is the employee. The customer of the business is the customer of the employee. There's this weird dynamic there. And so to Jimmy's point, I said, look, nobody is going to work as hard as I do. I'm always going to see a decline in production and revenue and profitability when somebody else is doing it. The question I have to answer is, are they doing it better than the competition, which historically any therapist working for us was always better than therapists working at other places? Am I making enough money to accept the risk of hiring and, letting somebody work? Okay. And then does this give me enough freedom to do other things?
Right.
Because I don't want to be that business owner who is it's my way or the highway. You have to do it like this. No, you're a professional. You went through university just like I did. You have equal education and context and everything. In fact, you're better because you're the one actually seeing the patients and learning every single day. If I'm not in patient care, I am losing my skills and my understanding of the patient. So I am going to let you do what you do best. Now, I've supported therapists that they'll work 40 hours and I'm lucky if they get 32 visits a week. That's just the price I pay to have that person on the team. Right next to them, a PTA will generate 60 visits a week for less, compensation. That's the reality of the way the business works. But
yeah,
I understood that I could not dictate or force them to do what I believed was best. But as long as they were doing what was in the best interest of the patient and, what kept them happy and satisfied, we had a good arrangement and most of our clinicians worked for a long time for us.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said there, except for one word change, right? So I agree. No one will work as hard in terms of sacrificing something. But if you put people in the right situation, they might be better than you.
Sure.
You might hire a therapist that is going to actually produce more than you would if you were in that position. This goes back to psychographics. I feel like this goes full circle. Let me give you an example. In radio, we didn't make a whole ton of money. We got paid, but like no one was under the myth that we were getting rich. I almost walked into a radio station the first day and I was dumbfounded. They gave me a key and didn't care what time I came in, morning, noon, or night. And I would in the beginning. I'd go learn production skills at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning after being out with my friends all night. I was thrilled to have the opportunity. Somebody recognized that I was driven by learning, and I couldn't believe you're actually letting me talk on the radio and people can hear me. So understand what drives people, and you can get a lot out of them. Because I worked unpaid for a long, long time doing a bunch of different tasks, but I feel like I got paid and felt like I was getting paid more than enough when I was doing those things. So understanding what drives people. So the only word that I would change there is harder or better. Someone's going to might not work harder than you. They might, if you give them the runway and say, hey man, as long as you stay within these guidelines, do whatever you think is best. And they might actually perform better, and better being better outcomes, better reviews, better opinions of you, and more, it could be more money, but understanding those things and not treating. So I sort of like that analogy of like, hey, they've got to be on the bus, my way or the highway. It's like, okay, we've all got to be on the same bus, but do we have to be on the same seat? Because Jimmy's most likely going to be hanging on the side of the bus, but that's where I'm comfortable.
I love it. So 2 things to expand off of what Jimmy just said. One is the Gary Vee thing. Any of the teammates that we hire, we should not expect them to have the 100% output or the, exuding the core values. Yes, we want them to exude the core values, but I mean, no one's going to, wake up early, stay longer, all that, do, skip lunch like us, all that type of stuff. We should expect our team members and employees to be 70 or 80% as well as us. So that's one thing I agree with what Jimmy said with the Gary Vee thing. Second thing that Jimmy said, which I want to double click on, which I really am passionate about, which is a lot of these practice owners and also business owners throughout the country, just service-based businesses, business owners everywhere. And I'm trying to improve on this every single day, which is what Jimmy said about managing these team members, onboarding them, training them, and then which is also the next point, is not just training so they get onboarded in 3 or 4 weeks, whatever, and like they're up and running, but then it's the weekly calls and the weekly check-ins that the owner, the manager, the business owner, practice owner, whatever, should be doing with their team members. This is one thing that my business coach, Sturdy McKay, has been helping me with, which is, I'll have like a challenge with a team member. I told you guys one of the therapists earlier this year that went from full-time to part-time and then, Sundays only. And then I fired him. I'm like you didn't keep the full-time agreement that we had in the offer letter, like within 1 year, So, and then Sturdy, I'm like kind of complaining to my business coach and my business partner, Sturdy McKay. And he goes, so have you been doing the weekly calls, the weekly check-ins with this therapist? And I go, No, I haven't. And so he asked this in a way because he's so talented with this. He's the kind of like, is there a way you were able to spot this earlier?
Yeah.
And he's like, if you were doing the weekly check-in calls, could this have been caught 2, 4, 6 weeks ago, whatever? And I'm like, yes, probably.
There's a great podcast, Guy Raz, who does How I Built This, now does a different podcast. And you guys know Jim Collins, right? Good to Great. So yeah. He was interviewing Jim Collins, and one thing he said yesterday was the largest factor to losing great employees and having them sort of fade out or look to go somewhere else. It wasn't money. It wasn't PTO. It wasn't free food in the lobby. It was the amount of contact time that they had with their leaders. Typically, good people want to understand where they are in the ecosystem and am I doing well? And I sort of, as I'm listening to this, I'm like, I'm chopping wood outside. I'm going, hang on a second. Every place that I've been like, I don't really fit. This isn't a good thing. I then applied that to it. I was like, oh yeah, they never checked in. The only time they checked in, it was when I didn't do something for how they wanted. And then, so I was always on defense. And maybe this is specific to me, or maybe this is universal, But I do creative stuff. I either do things that we know how to do in a different way, or we invent things that did not exist yesterday that exist now. I have to feel comfortable. Or if I'm pitching out of fear, I'm going to be playing it safe. And then you should hire anybody else, because anybody else can type in a thing in ChatGPT and get that answer and do that. So I thought that was unique, which is, he said the leading factor, and Jim Collins even said, I'm not really a writer or a motivator. He's like, I just liked business and studying the human condition because it had so much data. I could look at a business from 20 years ago and it tells a story, almost like looking at the box score of a baseball game. I can see how that game went by the numbers. So he actually said, I loved business, not because I wanted to make a lot of money or be a businessman. He said it allowed me to quantify the hero's journey, because he would compare companies that made it and similar companies that didn't and figure out what was it. And then let's double click on the reasons behind it. But he did have that one. And when I applied that metric to myself, which was, how often was I checking it? I had a job where we had a weekly one-on-one with my superior guy who ran the whole organization. And I could tell the whole time we were on the meeting, dude had another tab open. Just bring me problems, Jimmy. Just bring problems and solutions. I was there to be on a team. He was there just to get outputs and check in once a week for 15 minutes. So am I surprised it didn't work? Was it my fault? Maybe. It was also a little bit his.
So Dave, I know you need to go. Give us your parting shot, and then Jimmy and I will finish the podcast.
Sure. So parting shot, we talked about potential solutions for the wait list. We talked about potential solutions just now about onboarding, training, managing, reviewing performance with team members. You don't have to do any of this, but you can or should do some of this just only if you want a better practice, better business, just more efficient. If you want your team members to stay longer, because I know I do, and I pay a lot of time or money and effort to get new team members, new therapists, and I want to keep them if they're doing great and it's the right fit for both sides. So we're putting out these tactical ideas and solutions, and you don't have to implement anything, but also don't complain on social media that, insurance or, patients are going to chiropractic or massage when they should be coming to me, or this or that. Like, we're offering solutions. These are real solutions that actually work. Yes, I know it's challenging to implement. Yes, I know it's challenging to then measure and review if it's even working or all that. But these are ways to make a practice better and more efficient. So you can take it from there as the practice owner watching or listening. Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com, or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.